Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna probably ask you to mute yourselves. Although no, maybe not. We'll see. Let's see how this goes. So welcome. My name is Guillaume. For those who don't know me, probably know all of you. Not all of you. I've never met Fatty, I believe. We're gonna talk today about memory. And hopefully memory mastery, because this is what we want to achieve, or how to learn better and more efficiently, and how we can upgrade our memory, which has been probably in the last decade or so, like it's been really problematic for a lot of people. So actually I'm going to start with you guys, because what I want to know is what you want to know. So this is how it's going to play today. We're going to talk about like what you want to know, and you're going to ask me like first maybe some questions if you want, and then we'll see if I can address all of them during the presentation. I'm going to talk a bit about how memory works, the brain's three main core processes of the memory. Then we're going to talk about how we can optimize it, because that's what is interesting to us, and mostly about learning strategies. And those learning strategies you will learn not from me, they're from scientists. Actually, they've been like tested and retested many times, and they're very efficient. What surprises me that most people don't use them. I don't know why. And there's a very cool group of scientists in Canada, I believe, who actually try to spread those techniques, and they're very strong. And then we're going to talk specifically about mnemonics, and how, I mean, really like mnemonic techniques when you want to, this is maybe more for show or for DHVs, or if you really want to memorize things like really fast, or like, you know, very big amounts of data, which is what we do when we do a memory championships. And then we're going to go to the Q&A at the end if you have more questions. So my first question to you guys is like, what do you want to know? So if you can unmute yourself, go ahead and tell me now. Tell me now, yeah, what you want to know about, basically. Today, do you have any specific questions or about memory?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is Fadi.
Hey, Fadi. Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
I'll be honest, when you popped up the memory conference call option, I jumped on it. My space is primarily corporate communication, so I do PR, public affairs, those types of things. But right now I support investor relations, so it's a lot of financial communications. And I work with these the finance team, and really it's memory recall of numbers. So when we get into the quarterly cycle of reporting earnings per share or EBITDA or any of these financial metrics, their recall for these numbers, even though these numbers change pretty quickly, is astounding, and I'm finding that I can't keep up. And so I thought that was primarily it for me, is how can I be able to, mostly from a numbers perspective, look at a number, absorb what it is, what it means, and be able to recall it, in the next 2-3 days while we work on these things.
Okay, so that would be like numbers, and for a few days, and then what? You just need to forget it. You don't really need to.
Well, I kind of want to put it in the long-term memory space, because we have to revisit the numbers every quarter, and then you have to look at the numbers on an annual basis.
Okay.
So it's not, the problem is you'll use it very intensely for about a week, and then it gets put away for about 2.5 to 3 months, and then it gets put away again until the end of the year.
Okay. We're gonna do numbers, so that's definitely something we're gonna cover. So
awesome. Thank you.
You're covered. Cool. Anyone else? Do you have any other questions?
I'll jump in. Hey, Guillaume, how are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Good.
Glad to see you.
Good seeing you. I am interested in learning about memorizing information for presentations, and mostly the structure of presentations. So what I found is that memorizing that and doing the presentation all at the same time is just, there's too much going on there in my head. So I'm actually okay at it, just going off the cuff.
Okay.
But to have a structure in my head and follow that structure is
okay. So it doesn't have to be word for word.
No, it doesn't have to be word
Okay.
for word. In fact, I'd prefer it not to be a of information that I can blend.
Okay, we're going to do that. It's going to be covered as well. And it's not a big deal. Depending on how long your presentation is, like, but you can learn pretty strong and long text or speeches. Cool. We're going to do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Cheers. Anyone else?
Hey, I will jump in. Hello, Guillaume.
Ryan, hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Actually, I'm interested in information and numbers, like Barry said. But I'm just actually in something, at least like information. If it's not, I can do it. How people memorize cards, and they play casino and all this. They have a lot of technique, because I tried a lot of other techniques myself. I can memorize like information or credit card number or small information. But when a deck of cards and stuff like this, they need like probably different techniques. I'm interested in something beyond the normal
range.
Yeah, normal range.
Okay. Would it be like counting cards, or actually like memorizing the actual cards of the deck?
But both, it's fun, because I think the moment like you are beyond like the simple amount of memorization, like when you have like I can, like simple technique that maybe anybody can learn from books, it's fine. But this is beyond simple technique, I think.
Okay, so you want more like the mnemonics at the end, where we're going to cover that as well. And I don't know if I'm going to have time to get into the details. And if you have more questions anyway, you guys can hook me up later. But we're going to talk about that, and especially how to encode this type of information, where it's kind of like you have a lot of data to memorize. So we're going to do that. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Any other questions, guys?
I was just wanting to know if there's any cool techniques that you've learned that I'm not familiar with yet. So I know a lot of the techniques. But
you know everything. You can't know anything.
Well, no, but I mean, I've studied this stuff for years, and so since you're up in the championship levels, I just wondered what other tips and tricks you might throw my way.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can impress you. Cool. Anyone else? That's good. Okay, well then, so probably I won't spend too much time on the processes of memory and the technical stuff, because this is a pretty long presentation. This can actually take a whole day when you do exercise and stuff. And I'm gonna go more like to the part that you guys are interested in. So this is me. This is me at the French Memory Open Championship. This is me at the last WMC World Memory Championship, which was in Austria. We had second place with the French team. We were really happy, and I'm the sexiest French competitor, as you can see. So just so you know what you can do, like quickly, on the bottom left, you can see. So that's 80 digits. And that took me like about 49 seconds to memorize, which is pretty good. I think it's probably not my best. Then you're gonna have some of my PBs, personal best, one deck of cards. So recently, I think I can get to 1 minute 30 seconds for 52 cards. About 44 names in 5 minutes. That's usually first and last name. And the way to actually spell it. 80 digits in about 45 seconds. I think I'm probably better now. About 200 digits in 5 minutes. So you can see, and that's more interesting. Maybe that might impress you more. I'm not sure, Bo, but that's 1400 binary numbers in 30 minutes. So binary, it's only zeros and ones, and that looks a bit geeky, a bit Rain Man, but that's really doable. It's just about training and practice and practice. And I can do about 8 decks of cards in an hour. The goal is 10 decks for me. So I just want to tell you about why am I interested in this and why it's interesting. It's because my personal experience is I've never had a great memory. She had a pretty bad memory. And I found a book from Tony Buzan on memory, and I started working like probably like some people did with Ari Lorraine, about memory techniques, memory championships, what is it about, how it works. And I got fascinated pretty quickly. And then when I saw that it was working, I just kept training, and now I wanna keep going. So memory is really important in our day and age, and I feel that especially because we have so much external memories these days, you know, with our smartphones, with internet, with Google, we can just ask Siri or Alexa about anything, and we will know instantly. And it seems like we know a lot, whereas we're not aware of most of the stuff. And most of the stuff before we would have memorized, we would have maybe read books, and we would have had to memorize them. Now we don't really do that anymore. So I like the thing in the ancient Greek, you know, they had this goddess of memory, which was the name was mnemosyne or mnemosyne, and she was the mother of all 9 muses, which were like the mothers, the goddesses of all arts and history and any type of art, basically, and science. So without memory, we don't have anything. And actually, it's been proven that these days, especially like the last students, and the way people interact on a daily basis, we retain less and less information, whereas we feel like we know more. So that I think it's very interesting, and I think this is why we want to learn how to upgrade our memory. So first thing I want to make clear for everyone is like, you guys have all a great memory. So it's not about, I don't know, like genetics or like capacities or potentials. It's just about skills. It really is a skill. And our natural memory is really, really strong. So you have more connections in the brain. You probably heard that before, that there are stars in the galaxy or in the universe. And it's a great association tool. So if we just smell something, we have those crazy memories from back when we were kids, and it brings us all that stuff back instantly, and we didn't even ask for it. So our brain works with association, and that's something I'm gonna keep saying during this presentation. It's all about association, and a good memory is really about how you use association. And again, like our memory is it's a great filter because it's really well optimized. We forget what we don't need. So something you're gonna have to remember, and that's probably the hardest thing for people who start to get into memory techniques, is that if you don't practice memory, you're gonna lose it. If you don't recall something or practice something, you're gonna forget it, because this is a natural way for our brain to filter things. If you don't use it, basically you're gonna lose it. People think sometimes that human memory is like a recording camera, and actually the human brain is really, really bad at recording things. So we don't really know exactly how things happened, even though we think we can. And this is why, you know, you can't trust eyewitnesses. It's been proven like countless times. We're really not good at remembering facts or even scenes where we were present. But we're really good at making connections between things. And so if we see something happening once, usually our brain, when this happens again, it will recognize it. And basically it can tell us, oh, this is happening again. Oh, and then we can predict things better. So I don't know where this is coming from. Some people say, you know, it's from the time where we were like living in tribes, and we had to remember what happened when we ate those berries, or we would have to remember what happened if we drank water from that well, or if we pissed off that guy, or if we went to hunt in that direction, if you catch my drift. So just know that your memory is not that good at remembering things exactly. So we can trick the brain sometimes to remember things exactly, and this is mostly what we do when we use mnemonics. But mostly it's good at making connections. Let me see. So 3 core processes of the brain, of the memory anyway: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Okay, we're going to look at those 3 things. And again, like the main thing that you want to remember, it's all about association. So when we encode data, basically, it's when the first time we see something happening, or we read something, or we hear something, we don't record it as it is, right? We encode it in something called an n-gram, but this is not very important. And then we encode the information. So all that bundle of stimuli will be encoded by our brain, and then we will store it. And at a later time, we can eventually retrieve it or recall it. And we're going to look at those 3 stages of these 3 processes, because that is very important for what we want to do with memory if we want to optimize it. Encoding, as I said, so it's grouping data in a bundle. So people who actually work in the music industry or in IT, they will know that. And you have to understand that when you encode something, basically, you associate the original data with a key or code. So if you understand that, you understand memory, which is basically every time you read something, you hear someone, you're not gonna record it as it is. You're gonna translate it, you're gonna encode it, and there's gonna be a key or a code that's gonna allow you basically to access that later. So if you can actually willingly use a specific key or code, you're gonna improve your recall of that memory. That makes sense. Storage, okay, when we talk about storage, so just so you know, we don't know the limits of human memory. Sometimes people tell me, okay, aren't you afraid you're gonna be like full, your brain's gonna be full? There are actually people who are like hypermnesic, who can't forget anything, and they can remember what they had for lunch like 20 years ago. And actually it's very painful even sometimes, because they can't really forget. Yeah, I mean, there's this one Japanese guy, he remembered like more than 100,000 digits of pi, and the guy is doing fine. So there is really no limit to the amount of information you can store in your brain. You have to understand when we mean storage, so basically we know, or we have the intuition, like science says, that you have something called working memory, which is basically just like those 4 or 7 bits of information that you can process at a single time. Then you have the short-term memory, which basically lasts for a few seconds, maybe half a minute. And this is what happens basically when you repeat something to yourself. This is just short-term memory. So it's really, really short-term. So for example, if someone tells me a phone number and I'm trying to remember it, I would go, okay, 221-513-475, 221-473-55, and I would go like that. And this would be my short-term memory. And usually if I say it to myself, I keep it in working memory, I can keep it going for longer. But if I just stop, I'm gonna retain that number for a few seconds, maybe half a minute, and that's gonna be it. Otherwise, it's gonna go to long-term memory. And long-term memory, basically there's no limit to it, because like people remember stuff like from a very, very long time. And this is what and you have to understand, short-term memory is something unconscious. And the process by which data goes from short-term memory to long-term memory is also usually unconscious. So now we can trick the brain also a bit to improve that. And mostly this is done by consolidation. We're going to talk about consolidation later, but consolidation is mostly done during sleep. So this is why sleep is so important. And then you have 2 types of memories, roughly. I'm not going to go into too much details, but you have implicit memory and explicit memory. And those are basically the 2 places where we store information. Implicit memory, it's going to be everything that's actually unconscious. We talk sometimes about procedural memory, so muscle memory. This has to do, for example, like how to ride a bike. That's going to be into the implicit memory side. Explicit memory, that's going to be anything that has, or declarative memory, anything that is conscious and that has, for example, you have semantic memory. So anything that has the meaning, so the meaning of words. Actually, I have some slides here. So yeah, this is explicit memory, which is like, for example, the meaning of words. What we call episodic memory. So for example, knowing what happened during brunch with Michael. You also have your perception of time. So knowing, for example, that this happened before that, or that, okay, I was born in that time. This is a memory. This is really my memory of time, or like, okay, I know what I did this morning, and I know what I did like maybe 5 years ago, and I know what happened after that. And then you have also what we call autobiographic memory, which is basically how what happened to me when. So it's a bit closed with space-time, spatial and time memory, but it's mostly what happened to me, and it has to, you know, basically if something happened to you or to someone else, usually with autobiographic memory. And implicit memory, again, yeah, this is all everything that has to do with the unconscious. So it could be something like equilibrium, something with your skills like muscle memory, like playing the piano, playing sports, riding the bike. And it's also linked to priming. So priming, that's also something very important, like why we like the people we like, why we like the food we like, because basically this is what happened when we were kids or when we were babies, or because that's the first kind of food like our parents got us. Why do we have a sweet tooth? This is all in the implicit memory. Implicit memory, most of the time, you can't access it consciously. It's going to be just unconscious. Like you can't really, and that's actually, it's been proven. Even if you have a huge impact to the brain, you have a brain trauma, and you actually get amnesia, you will still remember how to ride the bike, even though you cannot remember what you did this morning. So this is how we know that this is being stored in different parts of the brain. Not going to go into the details too much. Plus, I'm not an expert on the subject, but just you got to know that memory, it's stored everywhere. So sometimes you hear that, okay, it's stored in the hippocampus, or it's stored in the amygdala, or in the temporal lobes, and it's basically it's stored everywhere in the brain. So now you're going to have some parts of the brain who have a specific importance for memory. But remember that we really use our whole brain first to memorize and to store memory. I've included some interesting, I think, studies who talk a bit about the importance of several parts of the brain and how it works. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff I can send you guys after this if you want. It's pretty interesting. Just so you know, like about the brain a bit more, when they look at the brains of people who have amazing memory, or people who are like memory champions or athletes, when they do an MRI of those people, they find that when they memorize and when they recall the information, they have more parts of their brains that light up on the MRI, and they don't have any physical differences in the structure of the brain, or even in the mass of the brain. So it's really about how you use your brain. It's not about how well it's going, or like how big it is, or so it's really how you use it. Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that. So memory consolidation, it's a process that stabilizes a memory after its initial acquisition. So basically, we said, like, when you have a memory in short term, the way it's going to go to long-term memory, it's when it is consolidated. And just so you know, consolidation, it happens mostly during sleep. So this is why sleep is so much important, and usually this is done by the hippocampus. Basically, the hippocampus will filter any kind of information you encounter during the day. And if it deems this information useful, it will basically consolidate it and send it to long-term memory. And you have to understand that short-term memory and long-term memory, they're really stored in different parts of the brain. And this is why actually your memory are change when they are consolidated. It's like they are re-encoded. So this is why even when they are consolidated, your memory can change. And this is why every time you recall, or you retrieve some information, or you remember something, you have to understand that your memory of that event, it's going to be affected and it's going to be changed. And this is why you can have like memories that fade, or memories that are reinforced, or memories that are actually rebuilt or really affected. And we're going to talk about fake news later. Recall. So recall is the retrieval of the information. So there are two parts of recall. There is retrieving information and recognizing information, which is totally different. So for example, when you, this is what I was talking about when I meant like some people like think they know more, but actually they know less, because due to the amount of information we see, we read, and we hear, all the facts we learn every day, we think we learn. When we see that information again, we will recognize it. So we're going to say, oh, I knew that, you know. But this is totally different from retrieving the information. And there's something which is called like free recall. So you can see like you can retrieve the information freely. It can be a free recall. So basically it's like you have a blank sheet of paper and I'm asking you, okay, what do you know about that book? What do you know about that guy? And then you're going to start telling me or writing down everything you know about it. That is free recall. And this is much harder than actually recognizing the information. If I tell you, okay, I've shown you like, I don't know, 10 faces, which one do you recognize? I've shown you like 10 words, which ones do you recognize? And then it's going to be much easier for you if you do that on cue. Okay, so free recall, it's basically when you're going to have to write something down, like during the test. Cued recall is like I'm telling you something I said before. I said, okay, John blank, and then later I'm going to tell you, okay, John, what comes after John? And you're going to say, okay, yeah, that's blank. Okay, that's going to be a cued recall. And then you're going to have sequential recall, which is something that might interest some of you. It's like, how do I remember things in a specific order? So like a speech or like deck of cards, and this can be even harder than cued recall. You just don't have to recognize information, or you can't just have one cue and then find the next. It's like, okay, how do I know that this was number 25th on the list? Or how do I know this was the first card of the deck or the last one? And I know that instantly. Or for example, if I'm interrupted during my presentation, okay, I can just go back because, okay, I know where I am. So now what interests us, we want to upgrade all of those processes. So for encoding, basically we're going to work on chunking and associations on the paper, or making it visual, even though I can't draw. But that was really powerful. And I still remember vividly those mind maps, or sometimes paintings, you know, like if you go to a museum and you have a piece of art you really enjoy, you will find actually it's very easy. And I know some people do that actually. They almost have only memory palaces done only with paintings or statues. You can really associate information to that specific piece of art. It could be at first just for your art culture. It could be just the artist and the movement, you know, was he a cubist, a modern guy, a dadaist, whatever. But sometimes even some people, they add some specific data into the paintings, into the pictures. We do that with graphs a lot. So I won't spend too much time on it. I think it's pretty common. I don't think it's too hard. I mean, but
can you give an example? I'm sorry, I interrupt.
Yeah.
Can you give an example, please? Because I didn't got it. Just give me one example.
Let's say you want to memorize this. What was that? Okay, that thing, the classification of rocks. See that on the left side, maybe. For some people, this could be a bit dry. Okay, especially if you know nothing about rocks.
About rocks, right?
So instead of having words, and actually this is for me the mind mapping version that works, or sometimes it's called webbing. Actually, webbing would be using only words, and mind mapping usually they use mostly images. For sedimentary, I would come up, instead of using the word, I would come up with an image, a drawing that means sedimentary to me.
Okay.
And I would draw that in that place. Then I don't even know how to pronounce that in English. Igneous.
Igneous.
Igneous, cool. Thanks. And I would put an image. So for me, that would probably something of a fire, I think, in that place. And then metamorphic, again, I would use an image. Okay. So what it does is that most of us, we've heard in our lifetime metamorphic as a word. Now, usually the people, we won't remember first the semantics of that word very well. So drawing that make it so much more concrete and much easier to remember.
Okay, got it.
Like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly is metamorphosis. So.
Exactly.
Right.
And probably I would even add some more information about what it means really for a rock, you know, like maybe that it's been heated to a very, very high temperature and then it changed the components of these molecular structure, whatever.
So you visualize the abstract information. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
And the whole diagram would be actually a drawing or something much more visual.
As a map, okay.
Yeah, and then it would become either a map or a kind of a piece of art, or that would make sense to me. Okay, and usually, yeah, that can be pretty powerful. I know some people who use that a lot. Now that's not very useful for things you want to memorize fast, I have to say.
Right.
Okay, and then basically that we want to memorize, combine those techniques. So you understand that if you want to memorize a lot of numbers, and this is what we do, so that's maybe more for you, Bo, but if you want to memorize like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 digits, you're going to have to use a memory palace and the major system, okay, to its full extent. If you want to memorize, I don't know, like something complex, okay, that you want to explain perfectly, you're going to have to do some dual coding and some space practice. So which means like I'm going to have to use both visual and auditory or written words when I'm studying and when I'm memorizing it and going from one to another. And then I want to make sure I repeat that using the spacing effect at different intervals and taking breaks and then going to sleep and doing that well. If I want to really understand the structure of something, which is quite complex and quite long, I'm going to use semantic hierarchy and concrete examples. And that would go into the example we just talked about, Ryan, with the graphical mnemonic, for example. That would work well because it's semantic, it's hierarchy, you have a hierarchy, and it's very concrete for me. So it makes that much more powerful. And actually, you know, sometimes there is not much value for me because let's say I'm an expert on rocks and I'm like, wow, I know that stuff. So I don't really need to make that more concrete, but it's not for you. It might be for your students. It might be for someone you're trying to explain that to. You know what I mean? It's for other people. And then your speech is so much more constructed, so much more easy for other people to understand. That's very powerful. And then, yeah, storytelling and mind maps, for example, you know, like you have a story in your mind, and in that story you have different mind maps which are connected to one another, you know, that, and then you can expand, and it's really, yeah, very organic. Yeah, that works very well. That was it for me, guys. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Guillaume, what is your go-to resource really for mind maps?
Okay, I would say Tony Buzan, because even though he didn't invent it, even though he claims he did, he's probably the guy who spent the most time on it and developing it, writing about it. He wrote a lot of books about it. If you can do actually a mind mapping training with someone who's Tony Buzan certified, because I know he has his certification, they're pretty good. They're pretty good, and I think it's one of the best mind mapping training there are out there. Now, saying that, I think you can go very, very far with mind mapping and with other techniques by just checking stuff on the internet. I don't have like specific resources. Actually, for me, what really opened my eyes about mind mapping was doing a speed reading training seminar with the New World Speed Reading Champion, which is French, by the way. Woohoo! That guy was like, wow. So the first part about memory that bored me to death, because I was like, I didn't know anything. But that was nice. That was nicely put. But toward the end, he really went into speed reading. And then I understood that at the end of every speed reading session, he would do a mind map. And for him, that's how he could get such a good retention. Because the biggest part about speed reading is not just reading fast, it's remembering what you just read.
Right.
And how you make images in your mind as you go and read really, really fast, if you know what I mean. And so as he's reading really, really, really fast, he's creating those images, and he's preparing his mind map. You know what I mean? And when he closes the book, he just starts drawing, and he's like, and then everything makes sense at the end. So usually what he does, if he has the time, he would go back to the book if it's not a competition, and then make sure and double check and maybe add some details to his mind.
Nice.
Cool. If you have any question, guys, or there's something you want more information on, just let me know.
Like random question, because those are a great technique, and now I understand. But I see like how much time you need to like. Do you have any skill to go fast? Like how you go from knowing the technique to do it really, really fast?
That's mostly space practice.
That's the practice, yeah.
So for me, for example, like I did a deck of cards this morning. I did maybe 2, and my time was I think it was pretty bad. It was like 1:46.
Oh.
And I was kind of pissed off. And like Friday, I was 1:33, and I'm like, fuck, why am I losing like almost 15 seconds? And I know why. It's because like I didn't train on Saturday and Sunday, just 2 days. So it depends how fast you want to get. Okay. Now, just for cards, if you want to just count cards, especially blackjack, you don't need the major system. You don't need the PAO. What they do, most people who count cards at blackjack, they just add and subtract numbers. You probably know that already.
No.
So, no? Okay. So, for example, I don't even know. So, depending on the value of the card, they would add +1, or they would use -1. Okay. And then they would have a value. And when this value reaches a certain point, or they know if they should hit a card or not, basically.
Okay.
That works usually with just single deck blackjack, or then it gets a bit more hazardous with the more decks you have. Okay. So there are techniques like that where you don't really need to memorize the cards at all. The only, I mean, okay, for poker, it can be cool, but just because you just have to memorize the hands that people played and how they played it. That's interesting, because then you know, oh, that guy, he played that hand in that position, and he just re-raised everyone. Then you're like, oh, he's that kind of guy. Okay, so you can maybe store that in a memory palace just for the short term. But I mean, to really memorize a full deck of cards, except for magicians and competition, or just showing off, showing you can. But even for me, it's very stressful, because when people ask me to do it, like I need at least 2 minutes to do it.
Yeah, it's too much, too long. Yeah,
it's too long already. People are bored. They're like,
exactly.
You're distracted. You're like, shut up. I would do the names. I would do numbers. Numbers much easier once you get literate in the major system.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to run. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Love you, brother.
Me too. Thank you so much, Bo. It was amazing.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
If you have questions about the major system, if you want some more details, you can PM me, and we can talk about it. I love that stuff. So
that's amazing, especially actually the first part of the presentation, like make us understand how memory works. Like now when you teach your kids or your niece, it's like even when I learn myself, like now I will do it totally differently.
Cool.
And one of the major, like I want to ask you actually, how can I retain maximum of a book? And now you already answered that. So from now on, every book I'm reading, I'm going to map it, because this is like an amazing thing.
It's like, and I'm keeping it actually, the mind maps. Now I have a folder where I keep some of the mind maps of the book I have done.
So to give you, that's awesome. Guillaume, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.